Hi everyone, it's Trace Face and I'm back at it again with another video today. Well, this is going to take me doing a lot of thinking to try to remember everything that I want to talk to you guys about. And I just want to start off with a disclaimer for this video. And I want to start by saying that, and I'm sorry about the glare in here, you guys. It's the time of day. I am telling you guys this information and I'm telling you my personal experience because it might help some of you out there to possibly consider some of the things I'm saying, whether or not you agree or disagree, or you have had different experiences in your life when it comes to dealing with New Age spirituality and your experiences on that. So if you're curious to hear my story, and it is a pretty long one, so get a snack and get some soda or whatever it is you like to drink. And I'm going to try to tell you all the details I can possibly think to remember to tell you on my story of when I was not when I was following a lot of different things and doing a lot of different things that, looking back, were open doors and portals for spirits to come on in and take over my life and lead me to other things. Okay, so if I was to think to really go back now, for many of you may or may not know, I started playing music in a band when I was 14 years old. I started playing in rock and roll clubs at 14 years old in a cover band, making pretty decent money. So I was doing this in high school. Uh, and when I got to college, my brother and I started an original band. And so I was playing out in bar rooms literally from 14 years old until I was about 37, 38 years old. I am now 43. So do the math. Very long time that I was doing this. And during that time, especially in my 20s and leading into my 30s, I was hanging around with people who were into pretty much anything and everything, but most of these people were completely anti-Christ. They were into tarot cards and witchcraft and things of this nature. There's not that, a lot of my closest friends were doing this, but I was. For those of you that may or may not know about the music industry and people that play music, like, this is very common. Okay, it's not very common that you're going to hear people in rock bands walking around saying that they believe in Jesus Christ. And so I was the type of person in my 20s that I just was very accepting of whoever anybody wanted to be, whatever they were into. And that was my viewpoint. Like, I was born and raised Catholic. In my 20s, I was definitely not a practicing Catholic anymore. I was making up my own rules, but yet I still believed in Jesus because I had had an encounter happen to me when I was in high school that should have woke me up clearly to the fact that Jesus is real. Okay. And that's a whole other story. For those of you that are interested in hearing about that, that story is intense. Okay. And so in essence, looking back, I knew better. Okay. I knew better than to do some of the things that I'm about to talk to you about. Now, when I was, let's see, yeah, I had some in between to this point that I'm going to talk to you about. There was one friend in particular who was very hardcore into witchcraft. And she was like, I was very close to her for 4 years until I realized how incredibly uh, disturbed of a person that she was. And so leading after her was the second narcissistic uh, partner, a relationship I was in with a narcissistic partner. And let's see, I I will say that music definitely can open up doors and portals, you guys. During the time I was dating him, we were listening to Joy Division a lot. And for those of you that might not know, Joy Division is a band that formed in the late 70s. I believe it was disbanded in 1980, if I'm getting that correct, because the lead singer ended up committing suicide. The music itself, I can just recall, would put me into this trance-like state. I thought the musicians were extremely talented, and but there was something about these songs and this music that would just make me want to listen to the songs over and over and over again. And it's all connected, you guys. It's all completely connected. And so during this time, I can just remember I was listening to really very dark music. Um, and come to find out, I don't know the exact song that Ian Curtis, who's the lead singer of Joy Division, who took his own life, he was listening to a song at the time, they said, when he took his own life. And it was a song by Iggy Pop, and I don't remember the album or name of the song. When I knew that and I discovered that, I definitely wasn't going to listen to that album. Yet here I was, obsessed with this band Joy Division, and just couldn't stop listening to them. Wanted to perform their songs in my band, wanted to just, now, I think the normal side of this is that I just can't understand why people would do this. That he was so talented. He took his own life the day before they were supposed to go on their very first American tour to, all throughout the United States. And it's just so sad. And then you want to know their story, and then you're just listening to their story and you're really getting into this. So the way my relationship ended with narc number two that I'm talking about here is so incredibly disturbing that if I was to tell you that story, that's a whole nother video in which I would have to get pictures out, and I will do that. But that's a whole nother video. And it was one of the most horrific experiences I've ever had in my life. And but I'm going to tell you what happened. So now, leading up to that very night, I had just got back from a 4-week tour stretch throughout the States with my brother. And we had these friends that we would stay with when we were in Pittsburgh. And I was telling this friend of mine all that was going on with me, and there was a lot of stuff happening with my ex and my current partner, and I was very confused, and I was going through a lot, and I was feeling depressed, and I was really questioning a lot of things and questioning, the characters in my life at this time. And I remember my friend, she said to me, "Oh, Tracy, you got to talk to these psychics. You got to talk to them. I am telling you, they have helped me in all aspects, in different aspects of my life, in different times throughout my life. They were there. It's a husband and wife. They do these readings for you. They do them over the phone, so you don't even have to be here. And you just call them, and they will stay on the phone with you for a long time. And then they're just going to help you. I'm telling you, it's so worth it." And you guys, I was so desperate at this time. I had never done anything like that. And at the time, I didn't really know much about psychics or, much about that. Uh, the only thing I knew was that, I was taught, if you ever saw like a storefront that said, palm reading and tarot cards, you don't go in there, that kind of a thing. So all this to say, I got back home to Providence, Rhode Island, and I made the appointment. And these people were literally like, pay what you can type deal. And I had to do this call from the office, my office in Providence, so I had some privacy. And I remember I was on the phone with these two for 3.5 hours, you guys. 3.5 hours, and they recorded the whole call, and everything that they said, from my ex to me to who was going to be my future partner, was spot on and downright, looking back, downright frightening. All right. They told me that I was coming up on a karmic year, and apparently everybody has a karmic year. And for me, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, this is going back to 2010. Okay. They told me that my karmic year was 2011, and it was going to be a year of major changes in my life. Well, the week after this, and the week leading up to this night in particular that I'm talking about, that again would take me a whole other video to tell you about that night. I kept having these visions, you guys, and I didn't know what they were and what they meant. And these visions literally happened to me that very night. Okay. And so keep that in mind. The New Year's Day of 2011 was the horrific night leading into that next day, of which, yes, the entire trajectory of my life would change. And I remember I was sitting in bed after all that had happened, and it was quite a lot. And I was sitting there just saying, I can't even believe that they predicted this craziness, and it's happening, it's coming true. And so after that, I kept having these visions of this person and how they looked. Okay. And the person had long, golden brown hair, and had this red plaid shirt on with jeans and cowboy boots. And I kept seeing him. Okay, this is for the next 6 months. I'd go to close my eyes, and that would be when I'd see him. And it was really weird. And I kept thinking, well, I've been going on tour, so maybe it's that I'm going to meet someone in Austin, Texas, or somewhere in Texas. I kept thinking, oh yeah, we've been going down over there. Maybe that's who I'm going to meet, And I was going through a really, really difficult time. So I didn't really know what this meant, but I kept seeing him. Fast forward 6 months into this, I am now dating this man who, all of a sudden, about, I want to say, it was like maybe 3 weeks in, a month in, he comes to my house to pick me up on his motorcycle with that outfit on. And he gets off the bike, and he's walking into my house with that smile that I kept seeing in these visions. I couldn't believe it, you guys. I didn't want to tell him right away because I didn't want him to think I was crazy. And then I ended up later on, I told him. And I kept thinking, you guys, that he was from God. This is amazing. Like, God sent this man to me. And, all signs pointing in the beginning that he was sent to me, for sure. Everybody was fooled and thought in the beginning that he was just this sweet person, and kind-hearted and funny and empathetic, and had a heart, and yeah, had another side to him. But nothing of which I knew was coming for me. During this time, I also was engaging in Reiki healing. And we're going on now. We got engaged. He asked me to marry him 3 months after I met him, and we were married a year later. And, now we're married, and crazier things began to happen. I want to say it was about after the first 6 months, and I'm going to take you guys with a little walk to grab my charger. So the first 6 months that I, the first 6 months that I ended up, well, my charger's downstairs. Maybe we're going to have to finish this video downstairs. The first 6 months that I ended up, oh no, I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry, you guys, my charger. I'm thinking of my phone charger, and I need the computer charger, and yeah, I'm exhausted. So please bear with me while I try to tell you guys this story. So the first 6 months after I got married, okay, I gotta tell you, I didn't know. I did not know a lot of things. And one night, no word of a lie, I ended up trying to go to sleep, and in our bedroom, the TV was on. We're watching Forensic Files. For some reason, I always had to have this disturbing stuff playing. Looking back, I was in a very low vibrating dimension I was living in at the time, and so I'm starting to fall asleep, you guys, and I literally see this black cloud hovering over in the doorway to the left of me. And I can't describe it, but I froze, obviously, and I'm watching it because I can't believe that I'm literally seeing this. And it comes over and it goes literally around the bed, and it comes over to his side of the bed, and then continues to just hover over him and sort of like sit there. And the next morning, we woke up, and sorry, I'm really trying to get through this. I know I seem tired, but I really want you guys to hear this story. So please bear with me. The next day we woke up, and he looked at me and he said, I had this dream about this black cloud that was around in the room. It was going on all night. I had this dream. So every hair on my body stood up straight. I I couldn't believe what I just heard, but something told me to not tell him. Do not tell him, because this is going to give this thing legs to walk, and this is going to make it worse. It's like I knew that. It was like this innate thing I knew. I also knew that this thing, I know this part sounds crazy, but I also now know that other people have said the same thing, so I don't feel so crazy. It's like this thing telepathically was telling me that he was watching porn. Now, for those of you that didn't hear this part of my story, when I got together with my husband at the time and we were dating, I made it perfectly clear to him that I was not going to deal with a partner again who was addicted to pornography. And I made that perfectly clear to him. And he assured me he didn't do that. He used to, he doesn't do it anymore. Right. The next day, this is 6 months after we got married, and that after I saw that cloud, it was like something told me that day, and I feel like it was that thing. Um, it's a spirit. It's a spirit, you guys. But at the time, okay, I didn't know any of these things. And I just remember telling him, I remember we were in Newport all day, and we got home, and I just looked at him and I said, you've been watching porn. And he looked at me like, how do you know? And I just said, I know. And that was the first time I told him to get out. I wanted him to get his stuff and get out. And, you know, without getting into that whole story, of course, it was, I'm going to do this, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to do that. Right. More and more things like this were going on. And uh, it just kept leading to more crazy things. I remember I had gotten, if you only knew that story of how I got this back injury, what a crazy story and crazy evening. He had an ex that was equally as disturbed of a person who was so insane that I wrote to the Dr. Phil show and they wanted my ex-husband and I to go on the show because the story was that incredible. And we had the whole weekend, they gave us the weekend to think about whether we were going on the show because his ex would have had to go on too. And I said to myself, do I really want this to be my story? Do I really want this to go, and I knew this would give her attention and keep it going. All right. She was a very wicked, disturbed demon of a person. Okay. And little did I know, so was he. But yeah, this is, you guys, I always talk about how demons travel in packs. They're pack hunters. And if there's one, there's going to be more, and they are in cahoots to try and take you down. So I had this back injury, right? And I was desperate. And I had this back injury. And so now we're going on to, 2013, 2014. The back injury was getting worse. So it ended up in 2015, we had separated the first time and we had gotten back together. And I could tell you so many more stories of paranormal and supernatural things that had gone on. But I just told you the very first one, okay? And so now all of a sudden I get this bright idea that I want to do yoga. And again, I don't know anything other than I know that this person that's about to, do yoga with me is known for it. She's known for restoration yoga. So she's going to help me with my back. My back was hurting me so badly. So now I start doing private lessons with her, and she's charging me, she's not going overboard. I'm going there twice or 3 times a week. I'm really starting to look up to this woman. Okay. And because she's helping me and she's inspiring me and she's telling me how she's been sober for, I don't know, something like 13 years. And she was older than me, and or I think maybe we were the same age. And I remember my ex-husband being like, "Oh, your posture is the best I've ever seen it since you've been going to her." And so she was having me doing these chants. I don't know what we were doing. They were these mantras, and we were doing them in our sessions. And she was starting to confide in me and telling me more things about her in her life. So she's having me over for dinner and things of this nature. Around the very same time, I think now, this might have been, we're going into 2016 now. I was having so much more problems with my ex-husband, and I just was, I would come home. I was getting even more urges to drink alcohol. I was hiding how much alcohol I was drinking. That was getting out of control, yet seemingly I was shaping different, and my face was looking different, and my hair was looking different. And I was starting to get more confidence in a strange way, even though he was like amping up his cheating and all this. And at this very same time, I came home one day and it was really strange. all of a sudden now, it had been what, 6 years? I just got the idea, I'm gonna call those psychics. I'm gonna call the psychics now. So I end up calling the psychics, and we end up doing another 3-hour session. And I couldn't even tell you what they told me. I just remember listening to all of this. And then this was around the time that I had my first experience with uh, sleep paralysis. This was all around the same time. Now, I'm going to tell you what else I realized. I didn't know, you guys. I had no idea what tarot cards were. Okay. Those psychics had done tarot cards on me in 2010, and they were doing tarot cards on me again in 2016. I didn't know when they were telling me I'm the empress and I chop off heads, and that's why I'm having a hard time, because I'm in positions of power, and these people are putting me in weak positions, and that's not who I am authentically. Well, that made sense, right? But I didn't know that they were reading cards and pulling cards out of a deck, and that it was tarot cards. I didn't know. And I didn't know anything about tarot cards. Okay. I'm just explaining the theme of it, of events that occurred here to get to this point. It was around this very same time too that I finally decided to leave the ex again. And wouldn't you know, at the end of that summer, he calls me up and he says, "Hey, do you remember when you had told me that you thought it would be so cool if a church just got with the times and found like a rock band and like made it more fun for people to come to? Well, I found this church. You'll never believe where it is." And I said, "Where?" And he said, "Rhode Island. We can go to it. Let's just try. Let's just try one last try for our marriage, you know." This is all around the same time. Okay. The tarot cards, the yoga, the sleep paralysis, the excessive drinking alcohol, the more paranormal stuff, like the time I saw his eyes go completely black right in front of me when I told him he had the spirit of Jezebel in him, or when I caught him Madoff, I was live on Facebook and asking him to show his photos, and I have that video still of his eyes going black. I'll always save that video. Yeah. Okay. The other thing that happened, okay, before I tell you about the church, was this yoga instructor this is again all around the same time, ended up one day at dinner, she invited me over her house for dinner, and she started to tell me. Now, she had told me previously that she had said some really disturbing stuff to me. And one of the things she said to me was, when I told her how he had been cheating on me, she said something that was really triggering to me. Like, well, if I want the way the world is, if I want to go out there and someone, then I do. That's what people do. And I remember, like, that was the first time I was like, what? Did she just actually say that to me? Like, I'm sitting here hurting over what my ex-husband's done to me, and you're gonna talk to me like that you're pretty much the same type of person he is? Nice. Well, come to find out, she had told me that she had an arrangement with someone who she saved from a heroin overdose. And because I was asking her how she made a living, I couldn't understand from what she was charging me and working at one yoga studio how she was making ends meet in this gorgeous apartment in the middle of the east side of Providence. And she said to me, well, we have an arrangement and he helps pay for me because I saved his life. Oh, I never met him, I never saw him at her apartment. So one day at dinner, she says to me, yeah, so, I met someone. I said, oh, you've broken up with so-and-so? Well, not yet, but I'm going to. But yeah, I met someone. He's, the vice president of, and it was a company that was, let's just say this guy was right up there with, you know, Fortune 500. Okay. Yeah, I met him on Match.com. So I'm thinking to myself, so you went on Match when you were in a relationship with someone. Okay. And mind you, she did tell me that they were in a relationship, but they had this arrangement, but it was a relationship. Okay. So now I'm just like, wow. And then she tells me that this guy, this vice president, is married with kids. So I was literally going from the frying pan to the fire in this time. Okay, so I decide at this time, I can't go back to her. But before I decided to not go back to her, I started going to this church. This church was one of those mega churches. I had never been to anything like it. They were so welcoming, like, welcome to our church. Like you can't even get through the door, and they're up they're up your butt, like, hi, like fresh meat. Um, and before you know it, I am doing Sunday school teaching for the kids. I am there, every Sunday at 7:30, and they want you to do one service, and then, you serve one service, and then you go to your service. Well, then it became, could you fill in for so-and-so? So now I'm not getting any mass in. I'm there from 7:30 to 12:30 with these kids. Every Sunday, I work a full-time job. I was working over 40 hours at the time. And then it became like, well, you need to go to Bible study with the woman from the church. Oh, okay. So I started going to Bible study. So then it became, you need to start going to Bible study 2 times a week. And also, we're now doing a Sunday night mass. So you need to come back to help the kids for that. And I will tell you guys, not once did the pastor and his wife ever come around after I was at this church for 8 months. Not once did they come around. Do you know the thousands, or I should say, probably more like hundreds, though, of people that were working for them? They had a whole recording studio in their church, you guys. They had an all, they had a whole recording thing for making videos for their church. I mean, unbelievable. They had a crew of people volunteering that literally used to go underneath the stage and pray for the people on the stage the whole entire service. Which remember, now we're talking about 3 services for their day, their Sunday, which was 3 hours. They call them like the fire worship team. One night, I remember going to one of their events. They also wanted you to go to their events, which this church was 20 minutes away from me, you guys. And so, I would go because I was so desperate to try and save my marriage, and and I was desperate for help. And so I remember one time they were trying to teach us all how to speak in tongues. And the entire auditorium were people speaking in tongues. And I remember I got the chills because I looked around the room, you guys, and I knew they weren't speaking tongues, many, if not most of them. It wasn't coming from the Holy Spirit. And I remember thinking it. And I remember being like so confused. These people were not godly people. They all of a sudden now wanted us to get there at 6:30 instead of 7:30 for a 9 o'clock mass. And I'm like, why do they want us there so early on a Sunday? Well, wouldn't you know, it's because they wanted all the volunteers to get together and to pray. God wants you to donate 10% of your income. You got to donate 10% of your income. Now I'm like, wait a minute. Are you kidding me? And I will tell you this part of the church that I will always remember. My ex-husband used to sit there in the pew and hold my hand with tears rolling down his face. And one of the worship leaders used to say, you need to take him down to the altar at the end of the mass so that we can lay our hands on him and pray for him. And every time that I would look at him to go do it, he would be completely frightened, and he'd look at me and he'd say, I can't, Tracy, I can't do that. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, don't you want to get delivered? Don't you want to get baptized? He could not get baptized. I had to get baptized, which I already was baptized, okay, with the Catholic Church. But I was doing this as a, I'm trying to get rid of the old, I'm trying to be delivered. And the very last time I tried to get him to go to that altar, he looked at me and he said, Tracy, I'm shaking. I can't go down there. Those of you that know the story of how evil things got with my malignant ex-husband, can't even call him that because he wasn't a husband. He was a fake and phony individual who did nothing but create harm to me and to my family and to, into my life. And I look back at those days. And it gets worse. I mean, I took a job working for the Catholic Church, and this was the final straw when I finally got divorced to him and I left these churches, you guys. I was involved working a senior management position for the Catholic Church. I can't even begin to describe the amount of demons that worked for this organization. These people, I mean, I worked with 9 people during the time I was there for a year and a half. 9 people successfully left or got fired. And when the list came out in 2019, the month that list came out in January, of all the priests from that diocese in particular I worked for that were moved around since the 60s and 70s, I'm out. I got out. They had to release that list. I don't know if you guys remember when that happened, that a lot of the dioceses were forced to release that list of priests that got moved around and transferred during those years. That's my cats playing with their toys. um that's when I left. But the point I'm trying to make about all of this is I look back at all those things and they are 100% without a doubt for me connected. Okay. And only since I have completely given myself over to Christ and understood what tarot cards are, what psychics are. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that some people don't have spiritual gifts. I'm not saying that. And I have a lot of clients that are into new age things. I personally thought that I should tell this story tonight because it might help some of you out there to hear this and to maybe think about these things. These are doors you guys open into the spirit world, and it is no joke. And if you are blindsidedly doing these things and not having a clue what you're doing or who you're talking to, this is the big one now, okay? You don't just go online and you know, talk to people that are claiming that they're psychics. You don't know who they're conjuring up to get information, and demons give information, you guys. Yes, they do. Okay? And they work in cahoots with each other. They help one another. They aid each other to coming around and taking you down. I have worked with thousands of people, you guys, thousands at this point. And when it comes to narcissistic relationships with anyone, there is something inside of these people, you guys, that is not good. It is not of this world. It is the complete opposite of being holy. It is the complete antichrist in knowing what antichrist behavior is. It's a complete rebellion, stubbornness. It's this want and desire to get away with things, to do whatever it is they want to do. It is a complete absence of God. And it will destroy your life. You have got to guard your life, your heart. You have got to stay away from people who are operating from darkness. Okay? And the wackiest thing that's going on here is my computer is getting darker as I'm talking to you, and it doesn't make any sense because the I'm not touching the contrast here. I know that the sun is going down, but anyway, I'm really not fooling around by any of the stuff I just told you. And there are even more and more stories that I know occurred in this time frame that I'm talking to you guys all about. But please consider it, at least, and consider who you're putzing around with, who you're allowing into your home. People can be doing very dark things, such as watching pornography, doing all kinds of crazy things behind your back, you having no idea, and they're coming into your home and they are bringing those spirits and that dark demonic energy into your home, and they are disturbing your life. And you've got to take a look at that. If things are going on, paranormal things, unexplainable things. That night that I had sleep paralysis, you guys, there was this little gnome midget that came out of the wall, and it was the creepiest little thing. I couldn't move. I could not move. It was running around me and I could see it, but I couldn't scream. I couldn't say anything. I could not move. And what got me out of that was screaming for Jesus. All right. And all kinds of other things happened. I had a dream. I didn't have a dream. I actually was brought to hell to see what it was like. That's a really hard thing to talk about. Because what I saw was far worse than anybody could ever imagine. Yeah. It disturbed me so much. I remember begging and pleading with my ex-husband to stop these behaviors and to stop the things he was doing, that are just, when you go around and you blatantly know what you're doing and you're hurting people and you have had a history of doing this and you continue doing it to people that don't deserve it, you, my friend, are demon infected. You are possessed. And remember something, you guys. The Bible talks about unclean spirits. That's the word that it was translated to. But the devil is not going to full on possess someone. okay, where you're speaking in Latin and walking upside down and doing all kinds of crazy things, contorting your body and stuff like this, unless he absolutely has to do that. What he likes to do is he likes to do things so subtly that you don't know it's going on in front of you, and you don't realize that that person in front of you has an unclean spirit. So it's got to do it. You know, the biggest trick the devil ever played was making you believe he doesn't exist. And I am here tonight to tell you that he does exist, and you need to pay attention, and you need to pray and get up and pray with God and be with God and watch your life turn around, and, you know, renounce all these other things. And I know your life will turn around because it did for me. I still have, you know, issues from time to time and problems, and don't we all? But it's nothing of what I was living in comparison to during these days. Nothing compares to that hell and torment I was in for so many years. So I hope that me telling you guys this story of New Age stuff, I could probably think of other New Age things I was engaging in, you know, some of these self-help books and gurus. I was reading all about that stuff, um, hanging out with people who were talking about transcendental meditation and astral planing. And you guys, that's dangerous territory. And the person I was married to had read all these books previous to us getting married. I didn't know. I didn't know that this is all really evil stuff. So get with God, get your life straight. That's my message tonight. I'm Trace Face, and it's time that we all face the truth together.